Have you ever heard the quote, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step"? Chances are you have. Well, this sentence and many others very enlightening, paradoxical, humbling, and at the same time empowering quotes are found in the ancient Chinese text titled Tao Te Ching. Before we get into the contents of the book, I would like to tell you a little bit about its author, Lao Tzu, and his elusive, mysterious, and, as some may believe, mythical biography. Although much is said about him, very little is actually known, and his very existence has never been verified as fact, which leads some historians to believe that he was a mythical character, and that the Tao Te Ching is actually a compilation of many Taoist teachings put together in the form of a book. Well, beliefs aside, I will stick to the most concurred information that I was able to find in books and on the internet. First, the word Lao translates to old, and the word Tzu translates to master, so Lao Tzu stands for Old Master. The oldest biography ever written on Lao Tzu was a chapter in the lifetime work of the great Chinese historian known as Sima Qian, a book entitled Shi Ji, also known as Records of the Grand Historian, finished in 94 BCE. In chapter 63 of his book there is a complete biography of Lao Tzu, where he mentions the many names attributed to the old master. Among them are Li Li Dan, Lao Dan, Lao Lai Tzu, and of course, Lao Tzu. It says he was a native of Zhu, which was a vassal state of the Zhou dynasty. He worked as the keeper of the archives for the royal court of Zhou, which supposedly granted him the privilege of broad access to the books of the Yellow Emperor and other classics of the time, allowing him to absorb great knowledge and, therefore, to evolve sagely wisdom.
The stories claim that Lao Tzu never opened a formal school, but nonetheless attracted a large number of students and loyal disciples who were eager to learn the wisest ways of navigating through life.
Many accounts agree about the story of how the Tao Te Ching was born. It is believed that the events took place during the decline of the Zhou dynasty, sometime between the 5th and 4th centuries BCE. The emperor had lost effective control, and noble families ruling individual states seized power, each hoping to consolidate China under its own rule. This was the precursor of the time of unrest in Chinese history known as the Warring States period. Lao Tzu eventually grew tired of the increasingly moral corruption of the Zhou court and decided to leave the state and go live in concealment. As he tried to exit the western gate of the Zhou capital dressed as a farmer and riding an ox, he was recognized by the commander of the pass, Yin Shi, who came to him and asked him what his name was. Lao Tzu replied saying that his name was Li. Then the commander asked him if he wasn't the one they called Lao Tzu, the old master. Lao Tzu reluctantly confirmed it, and immediately, bowing deeply, Yin Shi said he was an avid student of the Tao and humbly asked Lao Tzu to write down some of his wisdom before he departed. Lao Tzu saw the sincerity in his eyes and gladly accepted. So the commander invited him to his office to have some tea with him and to write down the 5,000 plus characters that we today know as the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching is formed of 81 short poetical chapters that can serve as a guide for living a simple, long and healthy life, by cultivating body and spirit through the practice of virtuous actions and good habits, by being detached from worldly desires, and by following the way of nature. The book, in its entirety, is filled with wisdom worthy of chapter-to-chapter dedicated videos, but in this video, we will be highlighting the parts of the book that better describe the Taoist philosophy of Lao Tzu. The Tao Te Ching can be separated into two parts. The first, going from chapter 1 all the way to 37, is called Tao, which is usually translated as way, path, or method, but frequently interpreted as the natural way. The second, that goes from chapters 38 through 81, is called De, and usually translates to virtue or moral. So Tao Te Ching is most commonly translated as the classic of the way and virtue. Before we go about the practicality of the Taoist teachings of Lao Tzu, let's take a look at what he has to say about the Tao. The very first lines of the Tao Te Ching are probably the most enigmatic and mystical of the entire book. It starts like this. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Nameless is the origin of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things. Now, after reading this, it might make you wonder if it really makes sense to even talk about the Tao, because here he says that the Tao is something no one can describe with words, neither define it with names. However, it is important that we use words to at least address the means on which we can attain that understanding, so we might get the gist of what it is. Talking about something that can't be described by words nor defined by names may sound very confusing or even meaningless, so to say. But what it means is that we can never understand the Tao through the intellect alone. We must feel it and understand it through the experience of living according to its nature. Like the water, its nature is soft and yielding. It nourishes all with no discrimination, and it humbly flows to the lowest places, surrendering to the natural laws. It is the very fabric of the cosmos, the source from where the entire universe is sprouted. And it does it without trying, only because it is its nature to do it so. It is its nature to create and to co-create through its creations, in which we can include us, humans. It is its nature to experience itself through everything that it originates, and I mean everything. Although we cannot name it, it is the origin of all named things, whether material, abstract, or ethereal. It is, as Lao Tzu himself puts it, the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. It is the immaterial fundamental truth of the universe that gives all material things solid reality. All things we can touch and hold are the tangible manifestations of the formless Tao. As Lao Tzu says in chapter 37, the Tao is constant in non-action, yet there is nothing it does not do. That brings us to the Taoist principle of Wu Wei. Introduced in chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching, and with 11 other appearances throughout the book, the term literally translates to without action or non-action, but it's often interpreted as effortless action. So it's not really an invitation to relax and do nothing, but rather the state of being where you accomplish things without strain, where you act effortlessly and things just happen your way, almost as if the universe was conspiring in your favor, only because you are attuned with the Tao. In other words, you are in the zone. You are synchronized with the natural flow of the universe. Living in accordance with the Tao is the same as living in accordance with the way of nature. It is the so-called going with the flow, or to swim with the current. Humans are endowed with the capacity for rational thinking, which comes with the potential for developing complex emotions that often makes us try to swim against the current, by trying to force an unnatural thing to happen in order to satisfy a rationalized and utterly selfish emotion-driven desire. You know, everything else in nature lives or behaves in accordance with the Tao, be them animals or plants, rocks, wind, fire, and especially water. They're all playing their part in the symphony of existence, going with the flow, not trying to force themselves against their own nature, and therefore contributing to keep the things in the world around them in balance. The writer and philosophical speaker Alan Watts, while explaining the concept of Wu Wei, said the following.
Sailing is a direct exemplification of man and nature in cooperation. Rowing is different. Rowing is a rather unintelligent way of propelling a boat because it requires a great deal of effort. But sailing is so skillful because you are simply using the energy of nature to move the boat. You are flowing through nature effortlessly by using the forces around you in a clever way. When you want to go against the wind, you tack. You get the wind to blow you into it. And this is what is called in Chinese Wu Wei.
Like Alan Watts proposes, it is better to adjust ourselves to the uncontrollable conditions of life than to waste time and energy trying to force things that are beyond our control to behave the way we want them to. So we'd be better off gliding through life with the wings of spontaneity rather than dragging and pushing our way through it as if we were cuffed to a ball and chain. But the question is, how can we possibly match the rhythm of nature and harmonize ourselves with it if we live in a society that strongly overvalues activity over passivity, complexity over simplicity, grandiosity over humility, force over pliancy, and so on and so forth? Well, let's see if Lao Tzu can enlighten us on this one. Metaphorically speaking, that ball and chain can be taken as our attachments and desires. Lao Tzu warns us in chapter 44 about the danger in our obsession for the things on which we have deposited excessive value upon. He questions, fame or the self? Which is dearer? The self or wealth? Which is greater? Gain or loss? Which is more painful? Thus, excessive love must lead to great spending. Excessive hoarding must lead to heavy loss. Most people would think that the answer is quite obvious. Gain must be better than loss. Only a fool will presume otherwise. Right? But many times we fail to realize how much we overvalue either material things like our possessions or immaterial things such as people's opinions or statuses, which can lead us to great spending. We buy things with credit cards before we really have the financial resources to afford it, digging ourselves deeper and deeper down the hole of debt. We also let go of our authenticity in order to satisfy other people's opinions due to their social statuses. We give up the self to attain fame because we were told it is a good thing, so we end up trading our uniqueness in order to counterpart with society's expectations. Once we have obtained the things on which we have spent so much effort and energy to get, we worry about possible loss, theft, or damage, impeding us to relax. As a consequence, before we actually lose anything, we have already lost our peace. In the next lines of the same chapter he advises us, knowing contentment avoids disgrace. Knowing when to stop avoids danger. Thus, one can endure indefinitely. It's very important to be watchful for our attachments and worldly desires. Acceptance and gratitude are the key words in the process of knowing contentment. Once we have acknowledged that the past is unchangeable and that the future has yet to happen, we will realize that the present is all there is, and that we have no other choice but to be in it and accept it as the only reality we have. Once we have reached that acceptance, we can then let go of the bitterness from the feeling of lack and start practicing gratitude. The universe operates through dynamic exchange. What you give is what you get. Emanate the feelings of discontent and frustration, and the universe will send it right back to you. Nevertheless, by being sincerely grateful, we are letting the universe know that we appreciate the good things it has brought to our lives, so it shall give us more of the same. Even our unpleasant experiences include aspects for what we can be grateful for. They all teach us a lesson and leave us with a better understanding of the world we live in and the reality we are experiencing here and now. They generate growth and maturity, and those are the good things to be thankful for, because they will help us climb back up when life seems to be going downhill. So it is as simple as 1, 2, 3. Accept, say thank you, and feel content. Rejoice in the way things are. Let go of attachments and self-centered desires. Follow the Tao and let it guide you through the natural path of true happiness. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world will belong to you. Alright, my friends, I got the last 2 highlights from Lao Tzu that I'd like to share with you. In the very beginning of this video, I quoted one of his most iconic statements, found in chapter 64 of the Tao Te Ching, where he says, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." You see, in the virtue of patience lies the notable simplicity of sagely wisdom. Can you wait until the mud settles and the water is clear? Forcing and rushing can only cause failure and disaster. Small beginnings make great ends possible. That means every great achievement starts from the bottom up. A tree thick enough to embrace grows from the tiny sapling. A tower of 9 levels starts from the dirt heap. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. Attachments and self-centered desires will only bring frustration and anger. The one who meddles will fail. The one who grasps will lose. Therefore, sages do not meddle and thus do not fail. They do not grasp and thus do not lose. Sages desire not to desire. They do not value the goods that are hard to acquire. They learn to unlearn, to redeem the fault of the people, and to assist the nature of all things without daring to interfere. In the last but not least, chapter 81, Lao Tzu closes the Tao Te Ching in his best, candid, humble, and minimalistic Taoist style. True words are not beautiful. Beautiful words are not true. Those who are good do not debate. Those who debate are not good. Those who know are not broad of knowledge. Those who are broad of knowledge do not know. Sages do not accumulate. The more they assist others, the more they possess. The more they give to others, the more they gain. The Tao of heaven benefits and does not harm. The Tao of the sages assists and does not compete. Lao Tzu represents everything that being a sage means. He lived by what he preached. Nonchalant, humble and concealed. The man who didn't try at all, the man whose very existence is even questioned, is the man who wrote the single authored text that has been the most translated in the entire human history. That is the power of Wu Wei. That is the power of detached, desireless, and effortless action. So, whenever you feel powerless, hopeless, or discouraged, just remember this. Like the Tao, you are timeless, beyond the boundaries of time and space, with no beginning and no end. Those who confront you cannot see your face because you are ahead of them. Those who chase you cannot see your back because you have moved beyond the scope of their sight. Undisturbed and focused on your own journey. Unconcerned with other people's affairs and simply detached from past misfortunes and future uncertainties. Just being present, here and now. Following the way of nature, going along with the stream of the Tao. Let it flow, 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 let it flow. Like a dragon, whoa, right in the clouds of heaven, yeah. Gonna fly like a dragon, whoa, ride like the wind forever, yeah. Let it go, 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 let it go. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow, let it flow.